All right, media dislikers and people who are fed up with the news and just the narrative in general, welcome Harmless Dave back again, talking about real issues in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. All right, so the Freedom Convoy, is it working? I would say that it's working really well. 23 minutes ago, according to the mainstream media over at MSN.com, which is most likely financed by either BlackRock or Vanguard, they just announced that they're going to be loosening restrictions. That's correct, loosening restrictions. Now, I follow this thing called COVID and Coffee. And what's interesting is COVID and Coffee predicted to the day when things would start to just suddenly, miraculously go back to some sense of normalcy. That date right now looks to be March 1st. So mark your calendar, and you're going to see strange pivots, crazy pivots, the kind that you saw in Friends when I believe it was Ross and Rachel tried to move the couch. In fact, somebody at the newsroom should probably just yell pivot really loudly, and all of those stories that were designed to scare you will suddenly be spiked as if they didn't exist in the first place. Now, they're not going to give the Canadian truckers credit. See, this is almost like preemptive narrative manipulation. It's just bizarre what's going on. It is a chess game. And a lot of times, the working class folks, they're a little busy, like working. So they're not like planning narratives well in advance. That's why January the 6th was such a bomb, because none of those people thought to themselves, is this a trap? Are we walking into a Fed trap? Is this a Fedsurrection? And it turned out to be, but a lot of people were like, hey, this is a really important thing. We should go. And because we're airing our grievances, and that's what we're supposed to be able to do, Canadian truckers and the people on the Ambassador Bridge, they were doing the same thing. Yesterday, they got pushed off of that bridge, which again, they were peaceful. They weren't doing anything. I'm kind of amazed by the differences in protests, right? So you got one protest where they break things, they burn things, they pile bricks up in strategic areas, and they throw those bricks through windows and at people and so forth, at police officers. That's considered, that's a peaceful but fiery protest, right? Something like that. I remember that CNN clip. I'll never forget it. Now, though, you've got guys who are, in their trucks, just sitting there idling. Maybe they go out and leave the truck for a while. They come back and their trucks aren't moving, but they're not doing anything destructive. There are bouncy houses and cookouts going on as citizens who aren't truckers are coming in to places like Ottawa and, just setting up shop and trying to facilitate or just help these truckers. And that's considered some kind of economic or domestic terrorism. Now, granted, if you can gum up the works where these people can't trade freely or they can't get goods and services in, my guess is that the truckers would probably bring in essential things. Maybe they would start to, discriminate between, the essential items that people need versus the non-essential items that people need, much like what was done to the workforce over the last 2 years. The workforce, they obeyed at the height of all of this. All those frontline workers, they went to work, and then they said, I don't think I want what you're given here, and I'm going to pass. Well, you can't pass. Well, what about what I did last year or the year before? Well, we really don't care. You know, your exemptions, they don't count here. And that to me was one of the straws that helped break the camel's back when it comes to this idea of a peaceful protest. And this is a legitimate protest. This is as legitimate as anything in world history. But yet you're still going to have people in the medical community who can't come to grips with the carnage, what I call collateral damage that they've wrought upon the population. And this is, by the way, this is going to go on for years and years. If these companies, these drug companies had liability, which they have no liability. See, I'm not getting in the car with a seatbelt that isn't tested. And if it breaks for some reason, the car manufacturer isn't responsible for that problem. But yet this is what we have now with these pharmaceutical companies. And the media, of course, never talks about this. Why? Because all the advertising revenue they get, everything is just, it's all tied together. It's a web. It's an ugly web, and people need to wake up to see it. Now, I don't know. I'm more prone to just knee-jerk as far as a reaction to the folks that believe in freedom. Okay, now, this is another thing that's happened, though, that freedom has become a right-wing term. Freedom is a right-wing construct. So what they're telling you, what they've done is effectively, and it's not just people on the left, it's even some people on the right that have said, look, you know, you can have your freedom, but, you know, they always say freedom comes with responsibility, which means you have to obey a government health authority. You don't obey the law, you just obey a government health authority. And by the way, those edicts change. So for the working class, for the people who are a little busy, say trying to work or raise a family, it's actually kind of hard for those people to keep up with these daily announcements that go out. And not everybody wants to watch, 45 minutes or an hour's worth of news propaganda each day. It's not good. Again, it's more of that collateral damage where, okay, here comes the segment. They're gonna talk about the thing for 15 minutes, and they're gonna give you one story. They're gonna tell you how many kids are in the ICU. They're not gonna tell you why they're in the ICU, which I find really interesting. That they'll say so-and-so, or they'll say this hospital has 200 patients and 6 of them are kids. Okay. And how many are over the age of 70? I mean, how many men, how many women? Nope, just break it out. Make sure that people know. And this is the whole design, which is trying to get you to feel like, okay, so the kids need to take one of these things. And by the way, that's been held up, which is really a gift from God at this point, because they seem to want to do this to houseplants and to in utero kids in the womb, stuff like I don't understand. And even though there are tons of stats that are super well documented, not from VAERS, but from the DOD itself. Attorney Thomas Renz talked about this. It was a bombshell. The media looked the other way because, if they start looking, and I don't know how much of the old truth the media is going to dig out after March 1st. It just depends. But see, this isn't about science. This is about politics, all right? Because the Democrats are, and a lot of these Republicans too, but mostly Democrats are thinking, okay, we took a poll, people don't like lockdowns. What do we do? Now, the weird thing is the Democrat voters love lockdowns. Like 85% of them basically want this to never end. I'm serious. I read a couple of polls. One, I think, was 85. Another one was a bit lower than that. But they were both basically saying, because they've gaslit their voters so much. And it's become a tribal issue like, oh, so you're not for endless lockdowns? You must like Donald Trump, or you must be one of those crazy people. I was like, no, I want my freedom. Whether Trump was here or not, that's not the issue. You know, Trump was very iffy and has still said some things, not recently. He kind of redeemed himself at the big rally he did in Arizona. But prior to that, he was a spokesperson for Pfizer. And I'm like, what is he doing? You know, best bet for Donald Trump is to stay away from guys like Bill O'Reilly, who are just neo-conservative shills for the establishment, even though the establishment completely treated that guy like crap. You know, at the end of his career, you make all this money for this network and you're the face of all of what they do. And then boom, some allegations, and then you're gone. And I don't know, are those allegations true? I mean, the guy is still walking around free. So my guess is, you know, his shelf life was up, and so they had to do something to him. But Trump needs to surround himself with better people at the very least. And I'm less concerned about Trump and more concerned about us. We're the ones that have to fix this problem. The Canadian truckers, they didn't have any other options. The courts weren't going their way. But yet now, you know, as of March 1st, guess what? You know, those restrictions and those mandates are going to start to be lifted. And by the way, anything that says anti this or anti that isn't a bad thing. Again, I'm anti-rape. I'm anti-human trafficking. I'm anti-child abuse. So we need to get a grip with this language. They've tried to weaponize the language and tried to make you think that you're a bad person because you don't want to do this one medical procedure, right? You don't want to do it. Hesitant, I heard that for a long. They're hesitant. Yeah, I'm more than hesitant. I'm resistant, okay? And so anyone else out there who hears language like this, what you need to do is push back hard on it and say, you're not giving the full story. This isn't informed consent. And so I'm not going to submit to the will of this group of medical professionals when you're ignoring this very large group and growing list of medical professionals who disagree. This is why informed consent during this entire thing was so crucial, but yet if you listened to the media was giving you just that one side. And then when someone would scurry through and say something, you know, really profound on the other side, they would just discredit them and call them anti this and anti that. And okay, you know what's anti? This is anti-human is what they're doing. All right. And I would agree with that one. This is an anti-human movement that really, at its core, doesn't want humanity to be free and happy and to pursue happiness. So anyway, I was kind of expecting that here in the United States, the truckers would get together here and maybe disrupt that amazing Super Bowl game yesterday. It was just such a cultural event here in the US. And but no, that didn't happen. And I could care less about the game. I know it was an exciting game, apparently toward the end. I did not watch any of it. The halftime show was an abomination. So many things about America has changed, and it's not for the better. It's just not for the better. And it's going to continue going in that direction. We're not united anymore. We are a bunch of states that are all doing their own thing, going in their own direction. And then we're cities within those states doing their own thing and going in their own direction. And it's just, you could have never imagined the kind of polarization that we have right now. But God bless these Canadian truckers. By the way, it's Viva Fry who is behind me, who is a warrior, a patriot. He's inspiring Canadians and also a lot of people from all around the world, including us losers here in the States who need to get off our collective butts and get in gear. And for you truckers out there here in the States, if not now, when? And I know what you're thinking. Some of the states doing the lockdowns, some of the states not doing the lockdowns. Even on Sunday, Sleepy Joe was still talking about, personal freedom is one thing, but wait a minute, I'm about to doze off. Oh, personal freedom is one thing, but it's like, I don't know what happened to personal freedom, you know? And then you hear this, well, you don't have the freedom to make other people sick. Well, this is over, okay? And the narrative is collapsing. And you can't keep saying the same old information anymore because number one, it doesn't make sense. Number two, they're pulling the plug out. So someone needs to let the geriatric patient know that the narrative is going to change and maybe you should just not talk about it. It was really another stupid idea to go on with that guy from the CIA there. Was his name Leslie Dolt or whatever his name is on Lester Holt. I'm sorry. See, Dolt, Holt. It's kind of the same thing, right? All right, people. I am done with this video, but we need to not think that freedom is a right-wing term. Freedom is a universal term. And I'm not saying it can't be a right-wing term, but it should be a left-wing term, should be a universal term. But again, I can't really do anything for my fellow humans who apparently don't like freedom. It's weird. They like lockdowns. They don't like it. They don't want to be free. They don't want to take off the oxygen inhibitors. They want to keep them on forever. Well, that's your choice. If you want to do it, that's what freedom's all about. For me, in my house, no oxygen inhibiting devices worn on the facial area. All right. See